Woo! Marley, super excited. Welcome to Flow with the Girl podcast.
Thanks. I'm excited too.
I've been wanting to have you on for a while, but it's just never like I don't know. I wait to like ask people or I'll wait to do something, so I'm a procrastinator. So finally, after I saw you, I was like, there's my sign. Saw you on the
Yes,
mall. I'm like, all right,
yes, I am too.
said that right there, and I'm like, all right, gotta message her. Let's do this.
Cool.
So yeah, and we've known each other for like since Cubby's days, the 9 days.
I
Like,
feel like we've both known each other through our like several eras of our own lives. Like
mhm.
you knew me when I was like this, and I knew you when we were, yeah, just like so many different seasons. So
Yeah, yeah. Well,
fun.
okay, so I'm just so excited to get into this. So let's just dive right into it. So you are a self-discovery and empowerment coach. Tell me more about what that is. What does that mean? A little more backstory about how you got started and why.
Yeah, I love that question because actually just recently I kind of went through and retweaked what I am. Um, I called myself for a while a personal development coach. I think I went with that at first because I was a little hesitant to like the fluffy words. And I feel like personal development sounded more like professional and maybe people would like grasp onto that more. And the more I sat in that, the more I was like, that's not who I am. That's not really what I do. Um, so the self-discovery piece, I kind of break it into two components. Self-discovery is that baseline of understanding and me kind of helping you to uncover who you truly are, um, who like authentically you are, kind of peeling back the layers. But in that process, it's also, yeah, understanding what habits you've kind of taken on, what thoughts you possess, what beliefs you have. Um, and yeah, some of the masks you've kind of put on over the course of your lifetime, ones you want to keep, ones you want to let go of, just really getting a better understanding of who you are as a person and what's going on inside and out.
Awesome.
The empowerment piece then is more of kind of the tools, accountability, support to help get you to where you want to be and to kind of live out that version of your authentic self that you're hoping to really embody. Um, and so I think they go together really nicely. And they really, I mean, every session I do with a client is a mixture of the two.
Yep, I love that. I like it. That makes so much more sense because the self-discovery piece behind like getting, like you mentioned, the thoughts, like, and I think over time, as we get older, there's always, from birth till however old we are, I don't know, it's like we absorb so much from the outside world, and then whether it's from someone telling us something, and then we have a limiting belief, maybe we don't even remember it. So is it a challenge to unlock that with people, like to kind of uncover those limiting beliefs, and maybe they don't realize they have those limiting beliefs until you guys talk about it?
Right. Yeah, that's my favorite part. And I think it is challenging. It's okay. Here's what I think is that for a person to try to discover their own limiting beliefs, it's next to impossible. Like I myself have a coach because it's really hard for me to identify my own limiting beliefs because I have assumed them to be the truth and I've carried them my entire life. So first of all, I'm navigating them on autopilot 24/7 and I accept them as truth. So like how would I identify it as a limiting belief, right? And we can kind of dive into that later. So the benefit I think as a coach that I play is that they're narrating so much of their thoughts and their behaviors and they're saying things out loud, and even as my clients are saying things out loud, they don't hear that they are verbalizing a limiting belief, but I'm able to on the receiving end pick up these patterns that they're mentioning or that they're continuing to fall back on, or just these phrases that they say over and over that they really don't pay much attention to, that is their subconscious, right, coming out that they normally wouldn't pick up. So I love that part. It's kind of like solving the puzzle or like being a detective.
Yeah.
And that's probably my favorite piece. And once you can kind of identify that theme for them, then there's so much more you can do with it.
Yeah. That's amazing. So how did you get started, or why? Like, was there a specific moment or situation when you're like, this is what I want to do? Like what was the path that kind of led you to this, and why do you want to help people through these challenges?
Yeah. Again, kind of fluffy. But so I graduated with an early childhood education degree. was a teacher for 5 years. I feel like kind of every little step I've taken, it could have never been predicted even 6 months in advance. Like walking away from teaching, I remember like toggling this idea around and thinking in the back of my mind, like, you would never actually do that. And then I just was doing it. It was like, oh no, you actually are like submitting a letter of resignation and you're going to make a change, make a change of course here. When I walked away from teaching, I thought I would be a stay-at-home mom. Because I had my second born. I just had my second daughter. Um, and in that was like, I did that for about 3 months. I'm like, this isn't it either. And then weird doors kept opening. I was like a store manager at a local boutique because someone reached out and asked if I could help them like revamp their customer service system. And they were like, you're great with people, and I would love for you to just step in. And like in that, had an opportunity to like purchase a boutique and was thought, oh, maybe this is what my life's going to look like. Just so many weird avenues. Did not do that. Um, but just kept trusting doors as they open, and then started to kind of like tune into these strengths that people were making me more aware of. I think we all have, the strengths that you possess, the strengths that I possess. I assume everyone possesses them, and a, they're not a unique strength, right? Because again, they're so natural for me. And over again, I kept hearing people say, I did fitness instructing as well, and they're like, gosh, I just like the way you have a way of making people feel blank, or you are so helpful in helping me get through blank. And I'm like, doesn't everyone do that? Isn't everyone a listening ear? Like, is it, um, and I'm also, I think just like you, Sophia, like a personal development junkie. I could seriously all day, every day listen to podcasts, read books. And I remember distinctly, I was just telling my husband this today. I remember distinctly the day that I was unloading my dishwasher, and I'd heard the term like life coach, all these, terms like millions of times. But I remember the day hearing it and really like it registering to me and thinking, okay, that must just be like a totally different group of people. Like I would never be qualified for that, but I'm really curious. And then the next thing I knew, I was just like researching it more and more. And yeah, like getting certifications. And um, the next thing I knew was like, I honestly, it was never like this pre-planned thing. I still
Yeah.
feel like, is this actually what I do for a job? I love it. But it was very much just like divine intervention of like, no, you need to like look into this and you need to do it.
Yeah, like you
Sounds
really
really
trusted.
a roundabout answer, but
Yeah, like you really trusted
opening
your
doors.
intuition too.
Yes, like big
Yep.
time felt an intuition. That same thing happened to me with meditation. I remember hearing meditation so many times, but the first time hearing it and thinking, wait a second, I wonder if I should like look into that a little bit, and thinking that it's not just for everybody else, but it could be for me too.
Yep.
And yeah, so kind of just some cool reflection moments, but
Yeah, I love that you said you were trusting or you trusting doors that opened. Um, I just think that's such a good reminder for anyone and everyone because and also to like be aware of that, like, okay, there's a door that has opened. What do I want to do with that? And then either
that,
step in or not.
yes. And I think that's so hard to grasp until you've maybe had experiences that can validate for you that it can work. I have a lot of clients that come to me and they just really want some like confirmation of like, what should I do? Like, what should my next step be? Should I take this job? Should I go back to school? Should I look for a relationship? And they just want answers. And I get that because I've been there. Um, and that was one way, that's kind of one way to experience life. And now I feel like my head is just in a different place. And I really am experiencing life with like, I wonder what opportunity will come today. And I try not to plan too much for the future because it's probably not going to go that way anyway. It's like, oh my God, like I just met this person and they asked me to do this. And then who knows what's going to come of that? Like connections and opportunities are just everywhere. And it would be a hindrance to ourselves if we try to just continue down the path and not look for open doors, right?
Yes, 100%. I remember like people would be asking, I mean, this started in high school and then in college, but people would be like, well, what's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan? And I'm not the type of I was not never the type of person to be like, bam, 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 here's what I want to do. And then like realizing that opportunities will come and go. And so you never know what's really going to happen. Like maybe having like a general, like, okay, I want to accomplish like generally these things in like 5 years, or like in my business, I want to do this, or, things like that. But then just like staying open to the fact that it will likely and it could change because of other things coming up and like other opportunities coming in. For me, I feel like that's such a, I don't want to say better way to live, but it's a more like freer almost way to live.
That's what I was going to say too, freer. And
Yeah.
I think like a really helpful component or something that can make that much more like reassuring is if you do kind of know yourself a little bit and at least like
Mhm.
what your values are or what your, you said you kind of have a rough idea of like where you're going or um I think it can be really confusing for people, like especially when they hear this kind of big idea of trusting doors that open. Well,
Mhm.
it comes from also knowing who I am and like what I do ultimately want, what brings me energy, like what sets my soul on fire. So it's not just like shots in the dark, right? It's
Right.
also, yeah, trusting my intuition and knowing who I am and making sure they align before walking through them.
Yep, absolutely. And I wanted to ask you about this because I saw, but I think you changed it on your Instagram bio, but you had said Jay Shetty certified.
Yeah.
I
Mhm.
fucking love Jay
So do
Shetty.
I. Everything about him. I'm like,
Yeah.
he's amazing who he is as a person. He's
Yeah.
beautiful. His voice is beautiful. I just love him as a, yes, all around great person.
Yeah. And I didn't know that he did life coaching certification. So how did you stumble upon that? And tell me just briefly before we dive into things more, how did that all
Yeah.
go down?
Okay, so my limiting belief, I'll just throw this out there, which I have several, right? We all do, but one of my limiting beliefs is like I'm not good enough, or like I don't know enough. Kind of also along like I'm incompetent, like I just don't have enough information, I'm not qualified. It's been that way for everything in my life. When I was a teacher, I would get award after award and kind email after kind email. And the entire time I remember thinking, like, I am fooling you all. Like, I am terrible at this. You know, same thing with fitness instructing. I would make these workouts and clients would tell me, like, oh my gosh, I love that class. And in the back of my mind, I thought, there's one person who didn't say something, and that person, I probably butchered it for them. Like, I just need to go back and like learn more, get more information, redo it all. So that still continues to haunt me as a coach. It's something I'm working through, but I got my first certification through ICF, International Coaching Foundation Federation, something like that.
Okay. Yep.
I got that one because I felt like you don't have to be certified to be a coach. But again, I was like, if I at least can say that I'm certified, then maybe people will find me credible, right? So I did that and I learned nothing. It was really just getting the letters behind the name.
Yep.
It was a little, yeah, really lacked like the meat and potatoes of foundational groundwork. So then I, launched my business, went to work for a while, and then still found myself thinking, I don't know enough. Even despite, yeah, clients telling me what I was doing was working, went back and I listen to Jay Shetty's podcast all the time. I don't really remember if I like got an email or something, but I remember the second I found out that it was something he offered, I was like, well, I don't know what that costs, but we're doing it. And got on a phone call like that day and signed up. Really awesome certification program, a good like community. It's international, so there's people from all over the world that are a part of this program. Um, it's wild though, because even after that, which I remember again saying to my husband over and over, like, this one's the one, this is so, so good. Getting done with that, thinking, maybe I should just like go to school for psychology. Maybe I should like read another textbook and just still kind of falling back and him, he's like, Marli, you know your patterns, like you got this. It's a confidence thing. It's not that you don't know what you're doing. Um, but yeah, it was a roundabout. It was a great program. Loved it. I think it was like 6 months
Okay.
and was
Yeah.
just doing that as I was coaching.
Yep. That's awesome. I can relate to some of the things that you're saying with not feeling like you don't know enough in that yeah, that's definitely like, I think I'm just realizing that that's one of my, limiting beliefs. I think I've kind of always known, but, Maybe just hearing someone else struggle with it is like, okay, that like it's okay that I struggle with it, I guess. But
Yeah.
even so, life coaching has been, it's always been in the back of my mind. Like, because I feel like even how I coach within fitness and nutrition, it's I kind of do like life coaching-ish type stuff, like whether it's mindset or just like data, like I like to intertwine all of it. Um,
Yes.
and so it's like that's one piece that's always been in the back of my mind. And even ever since yesterday, I just thought about Jay Shetty, the certification, because I saw it on her bio, and it's popping up as an ad now on my Instagram, just instantly, like
It's
today. I
like
was
can just get into your brain.
yeah.
Like, have I said this out loud? I don't even know, but it's there.
Yeah. So okay. Well that's cool. I'm glad I'm so glad that you have did
Yes.
that through Jay
I love
Shetty.
what you said too about like that you feel like your coaching does encompass more than that.
Mhm.
This was something I was going to share kind of later on too, but a lot of clients, like if it was as easy as crushing a nutrition goal just by being told what you need to eat or by exercising from a plan that someone's providing you, it like everyone would be doing it. But it's so much deeper than that. There's so much more to, or even if it was just like, I just need the accountability, you can find that anywhere. It's so much deeper than that. So it can't
Yes.
just be surface level nutrition coaching and fitness coaching or even like career coaching, any of those things. They have to go into a deeper layer of like what's actually holding you back. Right. And
Oh
I'm sure
my
that's what
God,
you're saying.
yes. That is 100%. And I hope people like listening realize that like it has to go. And I think to be successful long term, it has to be that way. Yeah. So I
Mhm,
agree
mhm.
100%. Okay, what would be like a theme that you find with your clients? Is there one thing that you feel like they all struggle with similarly?
Yeah. And again, I was just talking to someone about this morning. I said it's like the most devastating and comforting thing at the same time that everyone I've ever met, whether they're a client or just a person who's willing to get vulnerable with me, outside of coaching, I think we just all universally struggle with this um, confidence and belief that like we are enough and we are worthy and we are able to be accepted just as we are. Um, it's funny because so many of my clients will come to me with very surface level stuff of like, I think I want to lose some weight. Again, not discrediting that, but it's like very like clear and clean cut. Or like, yeah, I'm struggling with kind of some career identity stuff and like which role I want to play or some marriage things. And I think that they expect that it can stay pretty surface level. But then the more we dig, it's like it's so much deeper than the fact that you want to lose weight. It's so much deeper than like you don't know if you want to stay in this job or switch to another one. Like, so they come to me for a variety of reasons. We ultimately have the same conversations regarding the same kind of, yeah, inner beliefs and inner dialogue with every client.
Why is our inner beliefs and it's like our thoughts, daily thoughts, the beliefs that we have, limiting, like why is that also important in day to day in life and everything? Why is it important to be aware of those thoughts and then even maybe like change those so it's more positive? Let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. I can like get emotional thinking about this because the reason that I am so passionate about it is because I have experienced both and I still sometimes do. But man, I've gone through some pretty rough patches where I just remember feeling like every single day, like I was like in a twilight zone of everything just felt like a validation that I was not good enough and that everyone else was doing it better than me. Um, that like I have to keep my how do I say this? Like I need to keep my role for one more day because like if anyone sees me like drop, like if I reveal myself to anyone, like it would be so humiliating. Because I just remember feeling like inside I was just like crumbling. And I don't know, like on my bio on my website, I have kind of a write-up that I I remember writing it one night, almost like a journal entry. I knew I was going to be launching my business, but it was different than other ways I've approached my business. I was not thinking about formalities. I was not thinking about how people were going to feel when they read it. It was just very raw, like, motherfucker, I have to get this out, And really like didn't even reread it or anything and just posted it. And that was like my main page for my website for a long time. And it was just me stating like I try and try and try to fit in and to be accepted and to be approved of. And externally, everyone would tell me I'm crushing it. Like I'm in this group and I am on this board and my car is clean if you open it. Or like when people come over, they tell me how put together my house is, and my people are telling me how good of a mom I am. And inside, I'm like, if you only fucking knew. Like the frantic energy I am putting in to make sure that you think that, because I know who I am. I know that I'm not enough. That's my limiting belief. And so it felt like the truth was the truth, the knowledge that I carried was that I'm not enough. And so I lived my life that way. I really, everything I saw and experienced was like, God damn it, I'm not enough. And it was just so heavy. And I do remember like I remember like reflecting for the first time after I started working on my thoughts and after I really understood that there was like an alternative way to think, right? Which for most people, they are not even aware of. I would assume most of the people listening here have been exposed to this idea. But like, I remember realizing I don't have to think this way. And there's other thoughts that are true. And maybe this isn't reality. Maybe this is just a belief I have. I remember that happening and like noticing days passing and being like, things are kind of like shifting a little bit here. Like I feel lighter. I feel more optimistic. I feel more free. I feel more vulnerable, but also transparent and authentic. And um God, it's literally like when I envision it, it's like this dark cloud of when I didn't know there was another way. And it like I can like envision the clouds parting and being like, oh my gosh, this is it. There's more.
Yeah. So like when you say there's another way, because you said there's another way to think, right? So changing if we have these like constantly thinking about the negative whatever it is, like negative thoughts, is that what you mean? Like just having those negative thoughts and beliefs, and then realizing that there's a different way to live, different way to be. But then how do we get to that point? Like we realize that, but then what do we do? How can we take that next step in doing that? Does that
Yeah,
make
good
sense?
question. So, the first step is awareness, is discovering what I always kind of call it like a lens, like what lenses do you wear? The reason I ask that is because, as you are probably very well aware, Sophia, like our brains want to stay in whatever's familiar to them and whatever feeling and emotion is familiar and comfortable to them. They aren't seeking happiness. They're not seeking achievement or pride. It seeks whatever emotion and feeling is familiar to you. So our brains have a way of kind of going through creating this formula based on our circumstances. I'm trying to think of an example to share with you. I have a client that last year she was going on a trip, and she had been excited. She planned this trip on her own, was very excited. And as the trip started to approach, all she could think about was the fact that she was going to have to be in a swimming suit, and she is insecure of her body. So the circumstance is that she's taking this trip. The thought that she had around it, the first thought that her brain creates is, you have to be in a swimming suit. Your body is XYZ, right? You haven't lost the weight. Which I ask then, based on your thought, there's an emotion that immediately comes up based on the thought that you have. We don't get to choose our emotions or our feelings. They are a immediate response from our thoughts. So her feelings then were shame, guilt, criticism, right? Like insecurity. And whenever I go through this process with my clients of here's the circumstance, here's the thought, here's the feelings, I stop and ask, are these feelings familiar to you? And every time they say, yep. I say, well, look what your brain did. Your brain did what it does best and it put it back into its place of where it's comfortable. And what do you, so then from there, from the feeling, next we go to the actions or the response from your emotions, right? And she's like, well, I started researching ways to lose weight really fast, and my brain started to spiral, and I was kind of panicked. And then her end result was, yeah, she's just still left feeling like she is not worthy and she's not good enough. And I said, is this something you hold on to all the time? Is this a belief you've believed for a while? Yes. So your brain just went through a process that created a formula to stay exactly where you're at. However, and that's on autopilot. Our brains do that automatically all day, every day. But the great thing is we have this thing called neuroplasticity and we can change our thoughts and we can actually rewire our brain. It takes a ton of time, it takes a ton of repetition and consistency and effort, but it can happen. I am one to say I have experienced it. It's not perfect. That other pathway will always be there, but I've seen a change. So we ask that same question again. Okay, you're going on a trip with your family. What other thought is also true about this? And it has to be something that people truly, genuinely can grasp onto and like believe to be true. So if she said, like, I'm going to look great in a swimming suit, well, she would deny that in a second because she doesn't believe that. But she did book the trip because she was really excited to go show her kids, a different part of the world. And I said, let's hold on to that one. That other one can still be true, but let's put that aside and let's not let our brain continue the loop. Let's start a new loop. So your circumstances are the same. There's a new thought. And when you think about that thought of thinking of, exploring the world with your kids and landing there and them getting to see the ocean for the first time and what feelings do you have? And she can really embody that because she actually believes that thought. That is something that she's thought about. And she's like, oh, I get like really excited and I feel like honestly really proud that that's something we're experiencing with them. Okay, what action comes from that for you? And she said, honestly, I want to like get on Google Maps and look for coffee shops that are near our hotel. And so I can like sit and relax with my daughter. And okay, what's your end result? And she's like, I feel super excited. And and both are true. You can sit in the other one if you want to, and your brain will likely try to take you there to the swimsuit scenario, right? Because that's what it knows. However, there are alternative thoughts that will be much more empowering for you. And this one's kind of one whole different scenario. You're really switching the focus. But there's lots of different ways you can kind of work through that system based on what your circumstances are. Um, Another thing, sorry, I obviously really love talking about this.
I love it. No, you just
Cut me
keep
off at
talking.
any time. But
Keep
another
going.
like visual I share with my clients a lot that's been really helpful, and maybe you've heard of this one before, but is like the black wolf and white wolf. Have you heard of this before?
I don't think so.
Okay, I love it. I think you will too. But um, when we're talking about like pathways and kind of always falling back into the same patterns of our thoughts, I describe it as there's like an old Cherokee story that this is told in. But essentially, we all have these two wolves inside us. We have a black wolf and a white wolf, and they're constantly fighting to, overpower the other one. And the wolf that wins is the wolf that you feed. And for most of us, all we see is this big black wolf, and we think that that's the only way, right? Because we're feeding him 24/7, and every thought we think is like, oh yeah, see, I said I'm not good enough, or of course my husband's a dick, and there it is, there he did it again. He's like so unappreciative. He didn't even look at me when he walked in the kitchen. And this black wolf is like sitting there with his mouth wide open, like, feed me. And it is big and strong because we have fed him so much.
Mhm.
But I remind my clients there is a white wolf in there too. And there is another way, there's another mouth wanting to be fed, but it is so skinny and it is so starving that you hardly notice him. It's time to feed
So
him.
sad.
Yeah, right? Like you have to stop feeding your black wolf. And that's hard for most people, but I do say, can you feed your white one too? Are there other ways you can look at things? Is there anything you can feed your white wolf? Do you like the way that, your ankles look in your jeans? Do you like the way that, like, did your husband come and give you a kiss and like put his arm around your waist and say, Like, hey, babe, oh, maybe he's attracted to you. What does that mean? You know, like, can you look and see that there are maybe some good things and that not the world is not rejecting you,
Mhm.
you
I
know?
love that. And what I pictured, like that truly made me sad because I think that for me, I pictured like, okay, so like the black wolf and the white wolf, like it's almost like they're connected, they are me. And it's like that white wolf is like a little younger version of me for some reason. That's like kind of what I picture. I don't
Mm,
know.
like
And
your
so
authentic you, like child Sophia.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, wow, that was beautiful. And I love the loop that you talked about because, like you said, that one, that initial one that you believe, the more negative one, like that, that's still there. We can set that aside, but let's create a new loop. And but it's like being intentional, and like you said, like it takes time and practice. But wow, I love that. That's like
Yeah.
a game changer almost. I've never
Okay.
like heard
Let
of
me say
it.
one more thing on
Okay.
that. Again, seriously, cut me off anytime. But side note, we have this friend who whenever I get like on a tangent, I always think of this friend of mine that he reached out one time and asked if we wanted zucchini, and we were like, sure. And we ran over to his house quick, and it was pouring rain. The kids were with us. And he sat there for like 30 minutes talking to us about like all the ins and outs of a zucchini plant and like would not stop, like talking about the meat of a zucchini and the size and all these things. And I was like, I want to cut him off, but he's so passionate right now that like I gotta let him say this. So whenever I rant, I'm like, I am on a zucchini kick right now. So here I
So
am talking about my
right.
zucchini. But
Absolutely.
okay, so the other thing is like these feelings, these thoughts, these habits we have, like they're called neural pathways, and we have been developing them our entire lives. So I'm 32 years old. Like these limiting beliefs, this autopilot version of myself has been ingrained in me for the last 30 years. And I have continued to nurture it. I've continued to dig it. I think of it as like an actual pathway. And I have like, it is well lit. It has been paved. It is like in the middle of a forest. I can find it at any time. It is right there and it is very accessible. And a lot of times I'm very tempted to hop on it because it's what I've always done. It's the easiest route, right? And so this building of a new neural pathway of changing your thoughts, changing the way you think about yourself, changing the way you view your circumstances, changing the way you show up in your habits. Like it's gonna be really freaking hard. It's like grabbing a shovel out in the middle of the woods and saying, okay, I know that other path is there and it's always going to be there, but I kind of want to try something different. And so it's going over and digging and like there's dirt and there's trees and there's branches and roots and it's a hell of a lot of work, but you just stay on the course and you can look over from time to time and say, okay, that one's still there, but I didn't really like it that much. I'm
Mhm.
staying on my course. And there's going to be times where like thoughts and fears and insecurities creep in and they want to like, I call them branches, where they're going to try to like hit you in the face and get you to go back over to the other path, right? But if you can identify them and say, oh my God, of course something's hitting me in the face right now. Like this is a branch because I'm forming a new pathway, but I got to keep going. Um, for me, that's also been like a really helpful visual of, yeah, no kidding, it's going to be hard because there's this other perfectly paved pathway that you could walk anytime. But you have decided you want to form a new one and it's going to be
Mhm.
challenging, but you can,
Yep.
right?
Wow, that I love that visual. All of these visuals that you're giving is like amazing. So
I think
true.
it's like the easier way to explain
It
how you
is.
can change, the gap. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of it is, my clients will say, like, what are the tools? Or I think for a long time I thought too, like I have to provide them tools. Um, so I would show up with like all of these exercises and like try to throw stuff at them. And honestly, none of them were that beneficial. But again, my kind of insecurities got in the way of thinking I have to provide for them, right? When really the process, like how to get from the old negative thinking to the new way of thinking, it's really a lot of just reflection and talking and getting aware with your thought, like really just tuning into what thoughts are even there to begin with, and then deciding what thoughts you want to replace them with. So
Yep.
it's
And
not
it
as like sexy as everyone wants it to be, right? But
right.
it works.
Yeah, and I think that the visuals allow a person to reframe things. It's like a total reframe. Like I can see in my mind, I can visualize that. That's what's gonna make the shift, and that's what's gonna make the reframe, and then the change from like where we are to where we want to be, especially like within our thoughts.
Yeah, because it
So
is
yeah,
so
that's great.
abstract. Like we're talking about our brain, we're talking about thoughts.
Mhm.
Again, I think that can like steer a lot of people away. But it's like, oh my gosh, there's just so much power in that. But yeah, to
Yep.
have to give some like analogies or visuals is really helpful because it is just kind of a, yeah, very abstract concept.
Yeah. So I had the question about like why we hold on to unhappiness and why our confidence is so low and we feel like our potential is so low, or like the possibility we give ourselves is so low. And it sounds like it's just the root of it is like these limiting beliefs that we've had for years. So like just has to be uncovering those things. Is there any other like thing that you would add to that as to why we maybe hold on to the unhappiness, the low confidence, and not feeling like we have like limiting our potential, I guess.
Yeah, I think we covered most of it. The last thing
Mhm.
I'd say is like, this feels cliche to say, but we have these brains that have been evolving over hundreds of thousands of years. And in like from the beginning, our brains weren't really designed to like direct to like jump towards risk, right? Out of survival, we were wired to stay safe and to protect ourselves and to take the path of least resistance. And so, a question I ask my clients all the time is, are you choosing happiness or are you choosing comfortable? Are you choosing happy or comfortable? Because they're not usually the same, but our brain will almost always want to choose comfortable because it's doing what it's supposed to do. It's trying to keep us safe. Um, so many times clients are like, I know what I want to do, or I have these goals that I've set, but I can't freaking do the thing to get it to get me there. And it's like, yeah, well, let's just accept that to be truth that your brain's going to fight with you from time to time or all the time.
Yep.
One of my clients says, like, I feel like I'm living two lives at the same time. Like, I'm still managing this old one and having to like not give in to this temptation of falling back in those old patterns. And I'm trying to live this new one, and they're like coexisting, and it's really challenging. Um, but yeah, I think like getting clear with, um, I don't know what you really are setting out to do, and really asking yourself why. Sometimes I think we hold ourselves back because maybe we know it's not really meant for us in some ways. But in the, like maybe you really don't want it that bad. Maybe you're doing this just because like your parents said you should, or you're
Mhm.
looking around and it's a case of the shoulds. Like, I really should work out, or I really should eat this way, or I really should apply for this job. Well, if you think that's true, okay, but do you want to? Again, getting back to some awareness of like what you actually want as well.
Yeah.
It can be a couple different things.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that like going back to the potential piece, because so I listened to it was a Mel Robbins and Jay Shetty had Mel Robbins on the
Yeah.
podcast.
Yep.
And I shared it to my story. I don't know if you saw it. I shared it
Yeah.
twice because it was
Yeah.
like
It's
it
a good
was
one. Hmm.
yes. And it kind of, so I'll be honest, all of these questions that like I am asking you or that I like kind of came up with beforehand was, and why I was listening to that episode was because like I feel like it's all like I feel like I'm in a place where I have a lot of these limiting beliefs, and she it's like she called me out, but not specifically to me, but I felt like it was to me, that like I am giving up on my potential. I'm just like, and she was talking about how like I'm feeling a certain way, like you start to feel bad because you know that you're giving up on your potential. And I'm just like, holy shit. So like what would you say to someone, or like say to me, with someone who is struggling with that? Like they feel like they are not living up to their potential, or like they feel like they're giving up on their potential and what's maybe like possible for them.
I would probably ask you some questions first. So if you want to do that, we certainly can. But I guess my first question would be, well, help me to like get clear with, are you willing to share sort of like what you think your potential is or what you feel your potential is?
Yeah, okay, for example, I will there's it's like kind of all jumbled in my brain.
Yeah, of
Like
course.
things that I want to do in life. Like I've like super successful podcasts and like have a successful online coaching business with maybe some clients that I train in person and doing speaking events and like all of these things, but then I haven't fully accomplished even one of them yet. And then I see other people doing either one or multiple of those things, and I've been trying longer than them, but they're doing it and succeeding. And then it makes me it's probably I lose some of that confidence and I feel bad about it, but like I know my potential is to be able to do all of those things.
Hmm. So I hear a couple of things. I should have written some things down, but like I think it's interesting that you have this belief that you're not doing any of them yet because you're running a podcast, which is something I've always wanted to do and have never taken initiative for. This is my first time ever being on a podcast. And I've always been like, oh my God, it's amazing that Sophia is doing this. So I just want to say, I wonder if that's entirely true that you know, when you said I'm not doing any of it, that's what you said out loud, and that's not true. So I would encourage you to like make a list of the things you actually are doing. The second thing you admitted to doing is comparing yourself to other people, which will literally never, you will never win
Yeah.
ever. And so one thing I've done personally is just completely cut myself off from the need to look on social media and compare myself to other people because I lose every time because my brain is set out to look for things that validate that I'm not good enough, right? That's my limiting belief. I'm not on there and my brain's not wired to say, let's look to see how great of a job you're doing and let's go find it by comparing ourselves to other people. Yours isn't wired that way either, it sounds like.
Mhm.
So setting yourself up for success by maybe eliminating some of that. Um, what is like, I guess the next question I would ask is like, how important is it to you to do those things? And again, I would get probably a little more specific with like talking about each goal.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, is it important to you and why? Um,
I think that's a good question
because
that I need to ask myself maybe and like think about because I would say that it is really important, but then also there's times where I maybe doubt that that's what I like should be doing or not should be doing, but like it's like what if there's something else out there or what if like at times I'm just not enjoying personal training as much as I used to and or like I feel like I don't have that like spark and fire for that anymore and then I feel bad about that. So it's like kind of questioning all of it.
yeah, as you talk, okay, I never want to project. So I'm just going to throw an idea out there that I have. But like even as you're speaking, I'm hearing a little bit based on what you said too, of like I've never really been like a 5-year plan girl, and I've kind of always been. I wonder if there is some sort of limiting belief for you too that like I don't trust myself to know what I want.
Oh, yeah.
You know, or like I don't ever like I don't know what I want. I don't know how many times you've said that out loud for yourself or thought that of like, what do I want? What do I want? And again, it's okay to be curious with yourself, but our brain hears every thought, our brain hears every just like random comment we throw out there that we don't really hold that much validity in. Our brain still hears it and it stores in our subconscious. And I love that you're this free spirit. It sounds like that's what makes you you. Um, it's a big part of you, right? And I wonder if some of like your subconscious is interpreting that even as like, we don't know what we want. And like we have a hard time like choosing direction, right? And if that's a belief that you have about yourself, well, then you're never going to fully dive in one direction and really give it your all and not let like little tiny roadblocks kind of throw you off.
Mhm.
Makes
That's
sense? I
yeah,
don't
that makes
know.
total sense. And like total like realization right there, like with me not maybe not trusting myself enough to know what I want. And also I've never thought about how like my free spirit, maybe there's a limiting belief attached within that, like subconsciously.
Mhm.
So yeah, wow.
So you can even reframe that slightly by saying like, and it's something you can start saying out loud or journaling or whatever, but like kind of rewiring an affirmation for yourself that's still true, but just says that you're like working towards growth. So
Mhm.
I'm a free spirit who believes in choosing my direction or like um I know that, you know, I will choose a path that best aligns with me, something like that. But, and starting to say those things out loud. I have a client that says that she is like very impatient, she says. And so she says all the time, like, I am so impatient. I am so impatient. I don't know. I just like suck at being patient. And every time she says it, I'm like, you need to rewire that. And we need to say, I'm working on being more patient because your brain hears that. When
Yep.
it hears that you're impatient, it gets really stressed out when things aren't going as planned because it's stored that, right? And if your brain hears I'm working on being more patient, it says, all right, yeah, we are.
Yep. Yeah, that's true. I love that. I like that like reframe of changing that thought or like having that affirmation. because you're like you said, your brain knows, and then like your body probably knows too.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be
After
the
that.
polar opposite. You still have to believe it, right? But
Right.
like I'm working on gaining clarity in, choosing my direction, something like that. Because it sounds like you really are
Mhm.
curious about trying to figure that out.
Yep, that's a good one. That's good affirmation. Um, so what, okay, by the way, thank you for like going through a little bit of
You're
that with me
welcome.
because that
I
was
don't
very,
know that I answered it. I don't think that I can. And I
no, I
don't
know,
usually
yeah,
answer questions specifically for clients because I don't know that I have the answer. I
right.
wish I could be like, well, you should time block and then you
Yeah.
get it, But that's probably, again, it's not that. It's something inside of you that's holding you back,
Yeah.
which would maybe require some reflection. We can talk
Yeah,
more
for
in the
sure.
future about it if you want.
Oh yeah, yeah. And that I think that like that right there did give me some reflection points or like just things to think about affirmate like already practicing like having that affirmation, written out and said
Mhm.
and thought more, whatever that is. So
Or even just catching yourself when you're feeding the black wolf that says, I don't know my direction. Stop it and say, like, rewire it out loud. Even
mm-hmm.
asking your wife to help you. Like, if you hear me say, like, oh, I just don't know what I want, like, stop me and say, just help me think of something different. Like, help me say that in a different way. Like, oh, I have so many opportunities. And like, I want to choose a direction.
Yes, that's so great. I think that she will also appreciate that because she gets a lot. It's always at least once a month. I like am saying those things, and she is
Yeah.
like, I mean, she tries to help me through it, and is like, you. She believes in me, and she wants me to believe in
Yes.
me, but like
Yes.
yeah. So that's good. I should just ask her to make sure that hey, start to feed your white wolf a little bit. So
Yeah.
that's great.
Awesome.
Love that. Okay, so what is this just came to mind. What is the difference between a therapist and then like what you do? And how do people know which route to choose? And and I will say like there's a lot, I mean, nowadays there's like life coach, success coach, business coach, like coach for anything and everything, it seems like. How does one decide or know like you are for them and the difference between you and a therapist specifically?
Hmm. Yeah, good question. I kind of feel like as far as like deciding between what type of coach and things, I'm still kind of maneuvering that myself and I'm not
Mm-hmm.
fully aware. One thing
Mm-hmm.
I've really realized is like I think a lot of coaches will market themselves differently and they'll call themselves this, that, or the other thing, but a lot of them are kind of ultimately doing the same thing. I think some of them are more in like a consulting realm rather than coaching, where they're like telling you exactly what to do. Like they maybe have a program that works that they believe in that they'll like kind of coach you through,
Right.
like a course, right? Um, and again, when I started coaching, that's what I felt like I had to do because that's what I'd seen. But the Jay Shetty certification program really just says it's about believing that your client is coming to you as this whole capable, competent person, and they have all of the things they need inside of them. I'm just here to provoke the right, with questions to provoke the right thoughts and kind of insights. Um, that being said, I do, again, like I said, I'm a self what am I trying to say? Personal development junkie. So I do share a lot of like insights and things I've heard and learned.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that's like the big difference between coaching and therapy. One of them is that I do feel a little more allowed to speak my perspective. And I think clients are often kind of looking for that a little bit. It's still a neutral perspective and very unbiased, as opposed to them going to a friend or their husband or something like that. They're just looking for alternative ways of thinking about things or seeing things. Whereas a therapist, I don't know that they typically do a lot of like projecting their own perspective and thoughts. Um, I I also, from clients who have gone to both counseling and now coaching with me, they have shared that it feels like a lot more forward momentum with coaching. Counseling is a lot of kind of making you, now I don't want to say all of them are, but a lot of sitting in past things to really process and like really dig in. I do go into the past with my clients when we need to, because there's, of course, certain things that have happened to us, many that affect who we are and that are still there. But I try to do it with still more forward momentum of, okay, this is what happened. What do we want to do with it? I'm not qualified to help really dig in and process.
Right.
Though I am happy to hold space for people when they need that.
Mhm.
Um, I have experienced of my fair share of, trauma and childhood dysfunction and things like that. And so I've gone to a lot of therapy, and it has its place. I'm not, again, qualified to treat or diagnose any sort of mental disorders. I have some clients who do both, who go to therapy and coaching.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, I think the biggest difference is that it's a little less formal. It's a little more forward momentum. And there's some things I'm just not qualified to dive into.
Right. Yep. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. So more of like they process and they do their whatever like I guess qualifications that they have, but really they do the processing and then you're really like forward momentum, like doing
Yeah.
things. Yeah, that's great.
And I've kind of paired with counselors in different ways. Like I had one lady that I worked with that she really had some trauma that she'd never shared with anyone. And it came out in our, after working together for about 6 months, it finally came out in our coaching session. And I knew at that point that that wasn't something that I was really able to help her process, but I knew it required attention. So I was kind of like her liaison to help her get to where I don't think she would have been comfortable opening up. Like I was her space to practice that and to like learn to trust people, and was also there to help coach her through getting acquainted with a therapist and kind of moving in that direction. I've also have another male client that he had seen a counselor for several weeks and really didn't feel like he was getting anywhere and wasn't diagnosed with any sort of mental illness. So he kind of dropped that and is now working solely with me just because he feels like, again, it's a little more getting in where we need to get and like really moving with it.
Yep.
So it can look different.
Yeah, I think part like depends on the person, their experiences, things like that. But I like that it's like sometimes you'll even like kind of work together or like they find that it's not therapy or counseling isn't doing what it needs and then they come to you too. So that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
How long do you usually work with clients for? Like, do you have different, I guess maybe you have different packages, but like typically 6 months, a year, what does that look like?
Still kind of figuring that out a little bit. Most of my
Mhm.
clients that have started with me are still with me after about a year.
Nice.
Because I launched about a year ago. Um, and I do have packages, and I'm still trying to figure out like what is the purpose of that. I
Yeah.
think part of me is just mimicking that because that's what everyone else does. But I do think consistency is key. And again, we've been forming these pathways, these habits for so long that it's going to take more than 1 or 2 sessions to see change.
Mhm.
So most of my clients, yeah, have been with me. They usually stick with me for, I guess, most of them over a year. Um, but I would say, yeah, definitely 3 to 6 months. I always encourage them to do the at least 12 session package. And that's not a sales pitch. That's because I really think it takes time, you
Yeah,
know.
for sure.
Um,
And like you said, sorry, so like you said, we talked about it before, like you've had these thoughts for 30 years, like it's like a year is nothing in the grand scheme of things. Like I think you can really move the needle and get a lot of shit done within that time, but like it could take, years too to really,
yeah, I have,
so
I think, and the way my packages are set up, people a lot of them start out with me every week. Um, and then maybe once they feel like they have like a really good foundation, they still have these sessions that they can then kind of do for like spot coaching. And maybe we only meet once every 3 weeks or once a month or whatever that might look like.
Mhm.
Um, but yeah, it is definitely a process.
Yeah. Okay, so since we're talking about that, can you talk through like if you were to get what's the process? Like someone sees your website, they want to work with you. Then what happens? Like what's kind of the next steps forward?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I usually, actually always have people schedule a free discovery call. So that's 20 minutes. That's very informal, just like us, them asking questions, me telling them like the logistics of coaching, um, all of those things. And then if they decide to pursue coaching, yeah, they go online and book either an individual 6 session or 12 session package. Um, and my first session is always the same thing. It's the Wheel of Life. I don't know if you're familiar with that tool, but it's really actually, let me show it to you. It's right here.
Yes.
I'm going to speaking at like an exhibit, having an exhibit at like this women's expo thing.
Yes, I saw
Looks like
that.
this.
Nice.
Okay. Anyway, I'm really excited about this thing. But
Yeah.
it's called the exercise I go through with them is not on that. It's on the computer, but it's called the Wheel of Life. Most people when they come to me, they're super overwhelmed with like, where do I even freaking begin? Kind of like you said, Sophia, you're like, I don't know, I have health goals and I have relationship goals and I have business goals and all these things. And it's so much to try to just like ramble out.
Mhm.
So this Wheel of Life breaks most everyone's life into kind of 8 domains that we all experience. So you have personal growth, health, friendships, family, fun and leisure, environment, career, finance, personal growth. I don't know if I said that one. And so we go through and get really aware with them of where they're at, like on a scale of 1 to 10 in each area, their overall level of satisfaction. And that's just a really good awareness tool for both them and I to get on the same page. As we talk through that, then I start to become aware too of some limiting beliefs that they might hold. The future sessions after that, the next several, are really focused on mindset and thought work. Um, and then from there, that's when we start establishing some goals. People are really anxious to just like set goals and have me hold them accountable. But again, if it were that easy as setting a goal, we wouldn't be struggling. So we kind of set the mindset stuff first and then go into setting goals. Um, but I do ask my clients too to show up every week with kind of some reflection on of their own stuff of what they've encountered over the past week, challenges and highs and lows. That's what's different about coaching. Like we can listen to podcasts and have people tell us information all day long, but being able to apply it to your own life and have someone really personally break it down with you is that that's just so different.
Mhm. Yep. Do you, so like it's
So
like weekly calls, like weekly Zoom calls kind of that you do with people?
yep,
Yeah.
yeah, we use Google Meet and we just hop on. I have a lot of clients that I know, personally or through some way in town. But we just kind of do them all virtually once a week. Some clients are every other week. Most of them are weekly. Um, yeah, it's pretty slick.
Nice. I love asking this kind of question. How did you come up with joy and being, right? Am I saying that right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, you are. Yep.
How did you come up with that?
That's my favorite question. Okay, so I knew I wanted to be something about like authenticity and really being okay and happy with you being yourself and letting go of the layers and the masks and just joy in being who you are.
Mhm.
Um, had no idea what I was going to call it though. And I woke up in the middle of the night, promise I'm not making this up, and was like, I should do something with my kids' names, J and B, because Jack and Bella. And so, yeah, right. And so,
Goosebumps.
and then in the night, I was like, it was like all like a same thought at the same time. I was like, you should do something with J and B, joy and being. That's what it's going to be like in 30 seconds after thinking about it for weeks. Just woke up and was like, joy and being for Jack and Bella. So
Wow.
that's why I came up with my business name.
Super
That's
cool.
how. Yeah.
Did you have, so like when that came to you, did you have this feeling of like, hell yes, that's what it is?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because
Um,
it can also be, I love that it lends itself to like whatever anyone is in. So joy in being a
yeah.
mom, joy in being a free spirit, joy in
Yes.
being, an achiever, like whatever you might identify as, like let's find joy in being that.
Yep. That's
So yeah.
amazing. I love that. And I didn't, so like your logo is JB.
Yep.
That's
I
awesome.
just told my kids that like yesterday, and my 5-year-old was like, "Oh, thank you so much. You're so welcome."
Cute.
He was really flattered. Yeah, it
Oh
was funny.
yeah, I bet. Did you come up with the logo or did someone else, did you talk to someone and kind of think about that together and make it?
I actually just rebranded like a month ago. So if you look back on my stuff, you'll see a different
That's right.
logo,
Yeah.
different color scheme, all of that.
Yep.
Um, I am very impulsive. And so when I get an idea, I act on it if it feels right. And not all the time. I can also procrastinate, but in some ways I am very impulsive. So I quickly made something on Canva, sent it to a friend who is much more talented in graphic design than I. She like fine-tuned it, moved some things around and made it into my original logo. Kept all for free, kept that for about a year. Um, and then after a year, I honestly revamped like my mission statement and what I do and my logo and all of those things because when I first started my business, I'm like, okay, here's what I do based on again what I saw everyone else saying and thinking what I needed to be. And then after doing it for a year and tweaking it to make it what I actually do and what I feel most confident doing, I rebranded, and I also
Nice.
see some male clients now, so I wanted it to be a little less gender specific. It was pretty feminine before, so
Yeah, love that. Cool. I love it all.
thanks.
So before the last couple questions here, is there anything else that you wanted to like, whether it's a topic you wanted to talk about or just lasting thoughts or like just anything else that you wanted to say?
That's risky. You heard me ramble. I love this stuff. Um, no, I don't think so. I guess the if you feel like you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Oh my gosh, this all just sounds so far beyond what I'm capable of and it all sounds so like fluffy and abstract." I guess the number one thing I always want people to walk away with is this awareness that you have your brain is creating thoughts and you have an option to think other thoughts. Like what you believe to be your reality is not fact. And there's
Mhm.
alternative ways of thinking about things. Just let that sink in and let that just like bounce around in your head for a while. There's no pressure to start facilitating change, but just like make room for that belief to be true that like maybe there's another way.
Yep. I love that message. That is a great one. Good one to end on
Cool.
there. So if let's just say someone's listening, they're like, you know, I want to learn more about Marli, more about Join Bean, maybe start working with you. Where can they go? Where can they find you?
You can, if you're on Instagram, I'm there. I believe it's joy.inbeing, Being. I have a website that is very beautiful, thanks to a virtual assistant that I did nothing
It
with.
is. I love it. I saw
Um,
it. I looked at it.
Thank you. I really like
Yes.
it. But so that's just joy-inbeing.com. And what I really love is that you can learn all about my pricing and my packages all on there rather than feeling like you have to schedule a discovery call and there's all this kind of unknown. So all my pricing packages information is on there. I'm also on Facebook, so you can find me on there too.
Awesome. And then last question. I always love to ask my guests this. It's always different answers, but my podcast called Flow with the Grow, which also kind of came to me. Had been thinking about it for a while. I was driving to Hy-Vee. I will never forget, and just boom, it just came to me. And so like I can relate to the feeling that you had with your name.
I
But
love
so
that.
thank you. So Flow with the Grow. What comes to mind for you? What does that mean to you?
Oh gosh, I can like totally embody that too. I think that just totally summarizes what we just talked about, right? Of For me, I guess it means like letting go of this big expectation for a plan or um like this need for security or like to me, I think it just means trusting in the process, looking for open doors and checking in with yourself as you grow to see like what opportunities fit you now and today so that you can, kind of find more opportunities as you go.
Yes, amazing. I love that. Well, wow. Thank you so much for coming on, sharing your wisdoms, your insights, some of your story. Truly appreciate it. And I can't thank you enough. I can't wait for other people to hear this and just get it out there.
I loved it. Thank you so much. I was so excited for it and I was nervous. And then we started talking, and I'm like, no, this is just so fun. So thank you for making me feel so welcome and letting me talk about my zucchini.
I love that. I'm gonna forever remember that now too. If I get off on a little
Oh, I
tangent, like,
hope
okay.
I'll share this with that friend, like, just so you know.
Yes, good. That's awesome. Okay. Thank you again. Have a good rest of your day, and we will chat later.
Thanks, Sophia.
All right, bye.
Bye.